Speaker Paul Ryan told Republican lawmakers in a morning conference call that he will no longer campaign with Trump. Instead, he will use the next 28 days to try to keep his party in control of the House. Mr. Trump reacted on Twitter as follows. Paul Ryan should spend more time on balancing the budget, jobs, and illegal immigration, and not waste his time on fighting the Republican nominee. Our nightly political panel is here. Fred Barnes, executive editor of the Weekly Standard, and Molly Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist. So, Fred, what about what Ryan said today? Was this a wise move, a signal to his charges in the House of Representatives as to how they ought to pursue this? What?
I think it was a mistake. And here's why it was a mistake. There's nothing wrong with Paul Ryan deciding not to campaign for Trump or not to defend Trump. That's fine. But why announce it to the world? You know, that's going to make Trump mad, and he'll fire back with a tweet. Of course he did. And here we have Republicans in disarray again. There's chaos and so on. Paul Ryan didn't need to do that. You know who doesn't do that, and I think probably has the same generally low opinion of Trump that Paul Ryan does, and that's Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader. He's not out there defending Trump or campaigning for him, but he doesn't talk about it.
Yeah, Molly?
There's no question that people are upset about what what was revealed in that tape, and you saw that flurry of exodus, people saying that they could no longer support him. But the polls suggest that, you know, even if he isn't doing particularly well with Republican support, he still has over 70% of Republicans, even at his lowest point, saying that they want to support him. They don't really want to see this civil war among their elite leaders, and it doesn't really benefit either side. It doesn't help Donald Trump, and it doesn't help the...
So the idea is keep the talk to a minimum?
Oh, yeah, and actually, Paul Ryan hasn't been out there doing much for Trump anyway, so he didn't need to announce
I want to get to the question of whether it was wise for the Republicans who jumped ship over the weekend to do so. And in that context, it's worth looking at what we now know about the state of Ohio and the polling in that state. The Real Clear Politics average has been consistently showing Trump with a lead in Ohio. And as of today, Hillary Clinton has moved into a lead in Ohio by ½ a point. Now, that's on the average. I'm not sure that will hold, obviously, but it represents a significant change in the polling in the Rust Belt, in the state where Trump was doing the best. So Rob Portman, running for re-election in the Senate out there, he bailed early on Trump, said he wasn't going to vote for him. Was that smart of him, Fred?
Well, it sure something seemed to work for him. He won. He's running against a weak candidate, but he's the poster child of candidates running for the Senate or House with Trump at the top of the ticket. He's doing very well.
Look at this. It's on the screen now. In a two-way race, it's a full point, and a four-way race, a ½ point. Molly, your thoughts on the people who've deserted him, particularly including Rob Portman in Ohio?
My own thinking on this is that there was nothing in that tape that was different from everything we have known about Donald Trump. So the exodus that's happening now is not because people are suddenly surprised to learn that Donald Trump is who we've always known who he is. They're bailing on him in large part because he's doing so poorly electorally.
Well, I know, but isn't what we're seeing now in the polling that's available to us, particularly the Wall Street Journal poll, a sign that video went down very badly with a lot of people, and that while you might not have been shocked, and maybe I wasn't shocked, a lot of people apparently were shocked.
Oh, it absolutely went over poorly with people. I don't think people were aware, maybe, that they hadn't listened to Howard Stern audio where Donald Trump says very similar things. They hadn't read the book where he talks about bragging about betting married women and whatnot. But also, I think there's something of a self-fulfilling prophecy here. Media are absolutely apoplectic about this, and there are certain Republican officials who are feeding into that. And I think that also creates a dynamic that is feeding into these polls.
Yeah, let's take a look at who some of the main figures were who bailed on Donald Trump over the weekend. I think we can put it up on the screen. There's a set of about 10 of them, and that doesn't represent, you know, that doesn't represent anything like the full complement, because there's a whole slew of House members who did as well. Obviously, they're heading for the exits because they're afraid that he'll drag them down. Would it have been wiser for them, Fred, to do what you say Paul Ryan didn't do and just move away from him quietly, or do you have to say something in light of it?
Well, I think they have to say something, and they're all worried about getting elected or reelected, and they assume, of course, that Trump's not going to win. If they thought Trump was going to win, they wouldn't be out there putting distance between themselves and Trump. But they don't want him to, while he loses, they don't want him to drag them down to office. And it's self-preservation, and it's not unusual.
Well, you know, Molly, I would say that I think it's been true from the very beginning that what so terrified a lot of Republican office holders and mainstream Republicans about Donald Trump was that he would lose in such a landslide that not only would they lose the Senate, which is going to be would be tough for them to carry anyway with the lineup, but might lose the House as well, where they've had a very strong margin of majority over there.
And that is a very legitimate concern. That was one of the best arguments people had about why you wouldn't nominate someone like Donald Trump. What was interesting is that up until quite recently, it seemed that people were viewing Donald Trump differently than they view their House and Senate candidates. I think that it's hard to compare this to previous years in that nobody really thinks that Donald Trump is much of a Republican, and he doesn't seem that interested in presenting himself as much of a Republican. So it's not very common that you will see a split ticket. It's always a pretty small percentage of the population. But in this case, it might not be as bad as it would be historically if you saw the bottom falling out of a campaign, as we seem to be seeing this past weekend.
Let me just get both your thoughts very quickly on whether you think Trump did himself any good last night, and if so, how much, Fred?
Absolutely. You know, I think he underpolls a point or two anyway, and he may have gotten 3 or 4 points. So, you know, this brings him up, depending on your poll, use the Wall Street Journal poll, that should bring him up to 5 or 6 points behind. That 5 or 6 points is going to be hard to get, though.
In the last month, Molly?
It was huge. He had a very good night, and it was important for him to do that. It just should have happened in the first debate and not the second debate.
Thanks to both of you. We'll see you a little bit later.